Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life from inside the Cafe Cuball studios. I am more than honored and privileged, and I tell Syracuse Orange alumni, wherever they are, whatever they're doing now, they are always welcome to be on this broadcast. And I have had the opportunity to share the stage with so many. Qadry Ismail is somebody that I am so grateful to have on the show. And Qadry, as I say that, I'm in my head, I'm like, how many people have called you Qadry Ishmael and all this other stuff? I heard it a million different times over, and Tortora gets butchered as well. But Qadry, I'm so happy to have you here. Syracuse Orange phenom, living legend, in my opinion, went on to the NFL. You and your brother Rocket and Missile. I'm living in this world where I'm a little kid who gets to do what I love and love what I do every day. And now I get to share the stage with you. And I'm just like, thank you so much for everything, Qadry. So how are you, man? How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. I know that it's interesting. We all have grown up with those who've come before us, and we were motivated with all the things that we as little kids dream and fantasize about. And I've had those moments where I've been able to talk to some of my heroes and see what life was like for them as far as competition and competing and all that. And at the end of the day, they're normal men and women that really have done something quite extraordinary by being self-disciplined, recognizing strengths and weaknesses, and being mentally dialed into the moment. And when the moment happens, that's when the beauty of whatever you as a fan are watching, you get to experience. So I appreciate the words, and definitely I tell everybody there's no you with the Q. So there's no Qadry, it's Qadry. And somehow, some way, people want to put an H in my last name, and it's not Ishmael, it's Ismail. But what are you going to do? You're going to do your best.
Yeah, and so Qadry Ismail here with us here today on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Qadry, there's so many places I want to go to in this conversation. First and foremost, I want to go back to like the infancy of all this for you. When did you fall in love with football? When did you really when do you remember having a football in your hands? And when did you just kind of feel in your bones like I have to do this?
Sure. I think probably right around age seven or eight, just growing up and going to recess. Out to recess, we were playing football, and I just knew that there was. I didn't know the NFL. I didn't know that there was, a process to get to the NFL. All I knew was that, oh wow, you can play this game and you can play it professionally, and wow, you're a pro athlete. I just want to do that. I want to be a pro athlete. I just want to play in the NFL, whatever that meant for a little boy who just was dreaming big. And when I was in my mom and dad were divorced, so I was, on the weekends, my brother and I would go to my mom's house in East Orange, New Jersey, and there were a bunch of boys playing out in the yard, in the apartment complex yard that we were living in. And I'm telling you, we had some epic battles. And at that time, Earl Campbell was the big man on campus at Texas, and obviously for the Houston Oilers. And so the guys, they were like, oh, the older kids, they were, probably, in your mind, you're thinking, oh my God, you're 14. Wow, you're old. So, 14, 15 years old, they're playing with us, and they're like, oh yeah, you're Earl Campbell. And, I didn't know who Earl Campbell was at the time, but as I started realizing, wow, Earl Campbell is this famous football player and he's awesome. And the kids, all the older kids are calling me Earl Campbell. So they call my brother and I the Campbell brothers. And we were like, well, I guess we're good. So we were just, geeking off of that. It was just, it was amazing how in our minds we felt that kind of was the catalyst for things just getting us started into playing football.
Yeah, and when you look back at that with you and your brother, when for you, Rocket and the Missile, you call the Campbell brothers. When did you become Rocket and Missile?
So to fast forward from the Campbell brothers and uh, looking at our time in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, when we went to live with my grandmother, my brother was eighth grade track and field, and he was going up against some really super fast seniors. Well, we were doing some starts, and he was beating them. And so our head track coach, Boss was like, ha ha, he looks like a rocket in a pocket. And all of a sudden the senior boys was like, he's a rocket. He's a rocket. And that was from that point on, rocket, what's going on, man? And so my brother was dubbed the Rocket there. For me, I was at that time, eighth grade, ninth grade. My nickname was GQ. So, for whatever reason, you couldn't be pronounced Qadry. So they were like, all right, what are you gonna call him? Don't call me Qadry. Why don't you just call me GQ?
Yeah.
And I definitely had a social side to me where I really loved to chill out and hang out with guys and girls, and just be hanging with the girls a lot during lunch periods in school, and all that. So it kind of fit. But the point is that the missile came when my mom was interviewed on national TV. So my brother was up at Notre Dame. I was up at Syracuse, and Andrea Joyce, I forget what game they were at, but there was some game. My mom comes down on the sideline, and Andrea Joyce was like, so Mrs. Ismail, I know you have your three sons, and obviously your son is out here is Raghib. Talk to us about their nicknames. And she was like, well, as you know, my son Raghib is called the Rocket. I have another son at Syracuse. He's called the Missile. And my youngest son is called the Bomb. He's still in high school. And I am affectionately called the Launching Pad. So
That's awesome.
it went viral for what viral was back then.
Yeah.
And she was, the toast of the town. So my nickname went from GQ, who, when I got to college, no one was calling me GQ, they just called me Q. But at the same time, Missile came about. And so I remember in the Carrier Dome, we would have some banners up. And then there was like this one banner, like it was in the corner of the end zone. And they call it, I think it was like Qadry's launch pad or Ismail's launch pad. But then it had a couple of other signs talking about the missile. So I was like, wow, okay, that's my nickname. It stuck. And
yeah,
that's where the legend became.
And you talk about Raghib and just where he, it's to have these unique names of Raghib and yourself, Qadry, and then be the Rocket and the Missile. What do you like to be called? Because I mean, I've never met anybody in my life called Raghib except for your brother. And there's Qadrys out there, but Qadry is very unique in and of itself. Do you like being called, you and your brother, do you like being called by your given name, or do you like being the Rocket and the Missile? I know you have missile training. So, I mean, what are you more used to now at this point? And do you and your brother have a preference?
Yeah. So I think for my brother, I honestly, the older I get, the more I realize how the nicknames, the way in which he played, and jumped up the family name, if you will, on a national stage at Notre Dame, a little bit in Canada and some in the NFL as well, but primarily it was the time at Notre Dame. I mean, everyone was like Rocket, and I'm telling you, to this day, it's like, how's your brother Rocket doing? And you'll get some people be like, hey, don't you have a brother? Isn't his nickname the Rocket? And for him, he and I, like, when we do get together, yeah, there's a lot of people, and he'll even introduce himself. Hey, I'm Rocket Ismail. I remember, before COVID hit, the last kind of major gathering that we were at was his College Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And that literally was I think it was like December-ish or something like that. And then obviously the lockdown happened in the later months into the new year. But we were there in New York, and I mean, it was rocket, rocket, rocket. And that's just, it became, his calling card. but obviously family, my kids or my younger brother, his, kids, nieces and nephews, they're all like Uncle Ragib, you know, I will from time to time, people call me Q. So now all three of my kids are Kalea, my daughter, Qadry, my other son, and my youngest is Qadr. They're all QA. So they all have, went through high school and into college and graduated. And I still got my youngest, but literally they are like Q. And so their friends call them Q, which then I'm like, wait a minute, who you talking? You talking to me? I'm only the dad you're talking to, so yeah, it's cool. It's a sign of respect, a sign of, just cool, way of connecting to people. I don't mind it at all. And there are some people out there who I have met that have named them their kids after me. And I mean, gosh, there have been like a handful of people that I've come in contact. Oh man, my dad named me after you. Or I've gotten people online talk to me about their different origin stories of how they were named after me too. So it's been cool as far as our names and the nicknames and the uniqueness of it all.
I think it's great that your mom said that she said the rocket, the missile, the bomb, and I'm the launching pad. Like, shout out to mom for that. What's mom's first name?
Fatima.
What is it?
Fatima.
Fatima. So besides launching pad, did Fatima get a nickname from you guys?
Well, technically, we called her Umi. Umi means mother, and we would just more people again. Once you kind of knew us, you heard us call, my mom Umi all the time, Umi, and so people are like, oh well, hey Umi.
Yeah.
So,
there's a whole family where none of the given names are used anymore.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
So Qadry, whatever name you like, you came to Syracuse. I want to go back to that hindsight 2020. Why was Syracuse the right fit for you?
Yeah, so you get your 5 official visits, went to Penn State, went to Maryland, North Carolina State, Tennessee, and obviously Syracuse. When it came to recruiting, Randy Edsall was our guy who recruited myself, and technically he recruited some guys that were mega contributors to the Syracuse Orangemen at that time, now Syracuse Orange. But when I look at my recruiting process, one, Coach Mack, Coach Dick McPherson, but Coach Mack was the first guy who offered me. And I know Randy, when he would, talk to our coaches, but hey, we got some tickets to Georgetown, Syracuse basketball, and bruh, like you talk about legendary games. I mean, you're talking Patrick Ewing, Ronnie Cycli, Coach Thompson, obviously, Jim Boeheim, all that. It was just like, wow, you sitting there and Sherman Douglas coming up and down the court. I don't know if they still hold fast to the tradition. I haven't been back to the Cuse in a minute as far as basketball games, but I know back in the day you would sit there and right before tip off, you start clapping and you get in the rhythm.
Yeah.
And then the first bucket is made, you can sit down. And I mean, it was like, you see at that time it was before, I guess they broke the one record was 30,000 against Villanova. But then I think before that, it was always in that 18 to 22,000 or whatever. And we just experienced all that. So my recruiting trip, I went up there and I was like, yeah, I'm coming here. Yeah, it's a done deal. So had a lot of just really positive core memories. And that's what made me decide to go to Syracuse. And it didn't hurt that the year before they went to the Sugar Bowl, went undefeated. And they whooped up on Penn State. Rob Moore with his electric touchdown that set the tone for that day and whooped up, I think it was like 42-21 or something crazy. But yeah.
Yeah, one of my closest friends, nearest and dearest friends, Rob Drummond, and what he brought to it. So, looking at your teammates and looking at those, the teams that you got to be on with the offense that they had, Marvin Graves, David Walker, Terry Richardson, as well as Kirby Dardar, Shelby Hill, Chris Gedney, and so on and so forth. That's just talking on the offensive side of the ball. What can you say about your teammates, about those moments that you had, to name off a few of the guys, and obviously rest in peace to Chris Gedney and to the David Walkers and the Terry Richardsons and the Marvin Graves. A lot of those guys, I've been able to talk with them as well. These teams that Syracuse had, they were so much fun. And when you look back on it and you're like, wait, Qadry was on that team with that guy and then that guy. I mean, it's like there was so much talent that you, in your head, you're like, oh no, it was just David Walker by himself. Then Terry Richardson was by himself. Then Rob Moore was by him. Then it was just Qadry by himself. Then, Donovan, and then Kevin Johnson. But because there was so much talent coming through there that went on to the NFL. What can you say about your teammates and the locker room that you got to have?
Yeah, well, first, you mentioned Chris, and just the other day was looking back on my social media memories. It was a 4-year anniversary when he had passed. But I also look at, rest in peace to Kevin Mitchell, who was just a dominant D lineman for Syracuse. He was a nose guard, the likes of a Teddy Gregory when Teddy was on an undefeated team in '87. Look at me flashing back to names, and people are like, who are these people? I'm one of those old dudes now that you just be rattling off names. I'm like, I don't even know what he's talking about. But with that said, we had some dudes on our team. You skipped ahead and went to Kevin Johnson, but the GOAT is Marvin Harrison. So, the way in which we all played and just, I think Syracuse, that '87 team, laid a foundation of enough is enough. We're tired of losing. We're about to go out here and do this. And it became like, Darryl Johnson. I remember he was our senior leader. I remember Marcus Paul, may he rest also in peace. I remember both them being captains, and, Robert Drummond, the way in which he played and just the intensity. And you're talking about Rob Moore, those dudes, they ain't messing around. They were like, yo, we're about to do this. And the poise in which they played, that's what stuck out to me the most. It was the poise in which, you went up against SEC teams like Georgia and LSU and didn't flinch. You go up against Pac-10 teams back then, Arizona, and don't even, think second thought about beating them. Going up against Colorado and not even thinking about, because we were so prepared, we so believed in one another. It was competitive for sure, and that was good. But I think that was that golden era. It's interesting because of, I don't think we recovered from the Greg Robinson downgrade, and I don't think we fully recovered back to where we were in those 90s, late 80s, mid 90s teams, because I just think the mindset, the culture, the want to, the desire to win, it's a lot of talk, but there's no necessary true action behind it.
And speaking here with Qadry Ismail here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Cafe Kubal Studios, Syracuse and NFL alum, and one of the players that I put on my team all the time when I had my Sega Genesis and I could make my own rosters. So I had the Rocket and the Missile. I was undefeated. I'm like, ain't nobody going to beat me on this. I had Emmett Smith. I had Rocket. I had Missile. I'm trying to, I had Barry Sanders. I had Aikman. I had like Steve Young and Brett Favre backing him up when you back it up. But I mean,
you had a stacked team, bro.
But, Qadry, you talked about the fact that this history of Syracuse, this golden age, golden era, Coach Mack and all of that, we were so spoiled and it hasn't recovered. I speak with a lot of alumni of Syracuse of all different decades. And Rob lives right down the street from the Dome, for goodness sakes. He's 12 minutes away. So are you surprised that the current regime doesn't welcome back the players, doesn't have the players talk to the team, doesn't have players on staff except for Deion Maddox, who they just hired this past year? I mean, are you surprised that this isn't a school, because you look on the basketball side and the entire staff are former players. So are you surprised that there's not a former player connection on the staff? Really? There's not a former player connection. Hey, just come in and have a luncheon with us. They're not allowed to talk with the team. When Rob and the 87 team were honored, they were told to sit on the other side behind the visitors bench, and they couldn't even sit with Syracuse, and they were shut out of the Ernie Davis room because they weren't welcome in the Ernie Davis room. Kyle McIntosh came back to do a festival with me, the CNY Pop Festival, told his daughter and his wife about all these glory days at Syracuse. He went to campus, knocked on the door, and they told him to leave. So I know some of this by your face, I'm telling you for the first time, but are you connected to the program? And are you surprised that since Coach P was fired, there's been this giant, ever gaping disconnect between Syracuse's coaching staff and the people that actually built the program that wouldn't exist for this coaching staff to get paid if not for you guys?
There's a couple layers to this because in full disclosure, my relationship with Dion Maddox is a good one. He basically, I was his recruiting host when he came to Syracuse. He obviously signed with Syracuse, the whole 9 yards. And
yeah,
when I look at what he did last fall, he, along with some of the local DC, Maryland, DC, Virginia chapter, got a large alum of just football only together and had a really cool dinner meeting. And so with that said, when we were there, he talked about reconnecting. When I talked to the men in the room, and I was one of the old heads again. That was so funny because in my mind, everything is so fresh and clear as far as the interaction with guys. And I'm like, wow, yeah, we just, it amazed me that, yeah, some of those guys, there was a disconnect. And I think it started with Robinson, and it just kept on snowballing.
Yeah.
Getting worse and worse and worse. Whereas other guys that I've met across the landscape of the NFL, I mean, the phrase "once a Raven, always a Raven," as far as the Baltimore Ravens are concerned, that phrase took on a life of its own because other teams started adapting that philosophy. Well, once a Raven, always a Raven. It should be once an Orangeman, always an Orangeman, or once an Orange, always an Orange. And when I say, I'm prefacing my thoughts because, so for example, my son is in the transfer portal, and Dion and I had some discussions, but the response back from the team as far as what I felt should have taken place was a very weak discussion, which in my mind's eye, I'm like, so you're just saying that, from an evaluation standpoint, then, I don't know what I'm talking about, but what the heck, I do sports performance training. I've trained so many doggone athletes. It's not even funny yet. There's this big disconnect. And so I think part of it is ego. I think part of it is, this, that was then, this is now, but, you're walking on, the shoulders of those who came before you, and to, shun that is sad. Don't call me when, I do a podcast or I'm on national radio and talking about, things as far as Syracuse, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, we gotta, hey, Qadry, that's a little too late. You should have, made your intentions clear earlier. So it's disappointing. Because I love the fact that there was a rich history when Coach Mack would, have guys come and speak to us on our Friday practices or Thursday practices right before we did sprints. While it was a running joke, we took it very seriously as far as some of the words, but we also know we're going to get out of some sprints. So it's like, yes, we're getting out of some sprints, but so, oh man, we got to make sure we do what we need to do. I got a picture of myself, Shelby Hill, both in uniform. We're both in uniform with Rob Moore sitting on the sideline at a bowl game. Rob, I think, was playing for the Jets, I believe, at the time. And you wouldn't see that in a million in current day. And that's sad. You should be proud of the alum and, like I said, the establishment. And that's where you have that connection from the basketball element of it all. I think I probably would have a more welcoming experience basketball than I would with football, which is just really unfortunate.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. You know what I find funny is that Rob Drummond and I have banged the drum for years. That's been very simple. Recruit locally, which I've been chastised for. I was like, I didn't say take 85 players from New York. I said, maybe you could take one or two, for goodness sake. You couldn't take Stevie Scott. Really? You couldn't take Servassier Dennis. Stevie Scott set a record for a true freshman over 1,000 yards at Indiana as a running back. Servassier Dennis won ACC linebacker of the week. He just won an ACC championship with Pittsburgh. And these guys are not even getting sniffs, or they're getting told whatever they're getting told. And I'm watching guys like Mike Washington Jr., who is at Buffalo right now, coming out of CNS. There's so much talent. And so Rob and I said, recruit locally, number one. Number two, because that's the last time they went undefeated. Number two, and locally, meaning that 5-hour radius too, like recruit in New York and then go to that 5-hour radius, which most winning coaches do. And the losing coach at Syracuse doesn't do. So that should parallel something. On top of that, connect with alumni, because the best people to sell the product are the people that bought it, utilized it, and have advanced from it, which they don't do, and to run the dang ball. Well, the irony of this is I've been saying this for 6 years, and in year number 7 for Dino, and I consider Dino and I to have a good relationship on and off the mic. Dino is running the ball. It looks like he's attempting to talk to some alumni a little bit, and they just started going out locally to recruit. So you talk about, don't call me after a podcast. I'm like, 6 years of doing this podcast, bro, and you finally getting it. When you're about to be fired, you're finally getting it. So, but you're telling me right now, they didn't give your son a sniff. Marvin Harrison's son didn't come to Syracuse. Kevin Johnson's son came to Syracuse. They didn't give him a scholarship. And now he's at Florida with the Gators. So in my brain, I'm sitting here going, how that shows your giant detachment from the legacy, because Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't good enough, but he plays at Ohio State. Kevin Johnson's not worthy of getting a scholarship at Syracuse, but he's at Florida. And your son Qadry's in the transfer portal looking for the right fit, and he doesn't even get much of anything. I mean, if you want to really push away the alumni, you've done a fantastic job over the last 2 decades. If you want to completely kill that bridge and blow it up, go to the people who built the program and don't even bother talking to them about their son in like a real move. I mean, Qadry, it is disheartening that I know how on point Rob Drummond and I have been, because I've heard the inside out, and it's worse than I thought it was. And I can't even fathom the fact of what you just told me, that you said, hey, what about my son? And they're like, no, we're good.
I mean, honestly, I would say, to be clear, my son Qadry is my youngest. My son Qadry, he's graduated.
Yeah.
But the point I'm making is, in this, when it comes to the evaluation of talent, when Dion was like sitting there talking to us, I was like, wow, okay, if there's somebody that comes across my radar that I look at and I'm like, man, I know speed, I know hands, I know the route running, and I'm also keenly aware of what a good fit would be culturally. In other words, are you a kid that's going to be going to class? Are you a kid that's going to be one of them dudes that's just like, nah, I'm good. I don't need to listen to the coach. I don't need to go ahead and push myself to be better. If you one of them dudes, why would I even bother talking to, Dion or whomever about you? But if you check off all those boxes, then yeah, man, I definitely would say, hey, check out Syracuse. With that said, for how it went down with my son, it was just extremely disappointing, because I was like, wait, checks off this box, checks off this box, checks off this box. Boy, you guys understand transfer portal wise. Yeah, there's a reason why, but let's have that dialogue. So, where we're coming from. This isn't some bad situation. Oh my God. No, this isn't that at all. But long story short of it, and this isn't to, I mean, you're going to have to do what you're going to have to do, and you've made your bed, you're going to have to lay in it. I think for me, then I look at it as, all right, well, so be it. My time at Syracuse, I know it was done a certain way when it came to like, wow, we had a from 87 when I was a senior in high school being recruited, looking at the Orange Bowl and whooping up on Auburn and the whole nine, to when I graduated, to like, wow, we left the program in good hands. I remember David Walker and I were talking. He goes, yo, man, do you know our junior and senior year, I think we only lost what, 3 or 4 games, and that was it. I was like, what? We did? What? Because you just had your head down and you were just focused in on winning. Yeah. We're just like, all right, top 25, that's cool. But what if we can climb the ladder and get even higher? I think we finished, I think it was 6th in the nation our senior year. I believe it was. Going to bowl games was like, all right, there's an expectation. Let's see if we can get to a major bowl game and win it. But I think, yeah, the subsequent years, I even heard from some of those alum that were like, yeah, some of the hard-nosed culture of what we should be as dudes, wasn't there. That discipline wasn't there, and we got away with a lot of stuff. As men now, we realize that was a mistake then. But in my mind's eye, I'm like, I didn't know that. That would be something where if I was a coach, I'm going to be trying to figure those little details out and make it a program where, hey, let's bring back them dudes that have that high character, but let's also recognize if there needs to be some healing process, man, there be a healing process. If Rob Drummond, bruh, that dude was that of legend in that area, and both Syracuse as well as professionally, like, I'm like, nah, that's an easy no-brainer to bring that man on campus and have him speak and interact with guys whose minds are still in the level of trying to be influenced and be better. But my love for Syracuse is strong. I think just from I realized, okay, well, you showed who you are, and so be it. Let me go ahead and be fond with the memories, and if you guys do what y'all do, so be it. If you were successful, hallelujah, bless you. If not, then hopefully there's a correction in the course.
I'm smiling because when you were saying what you were saying, I realized there's one sentence that you and I are both thinking. I love you, but I don't like you right now. So I feel that for real. I want to go to your NFL career, Qadry, and look at this beautiful career that you had: the Minnesota Vikings, the New Orleans Saints for a little bit, the Baltimore Ravens, the Indianapolis Colts. What sticks out most in my mind, I would probably have to say, are the Baltimore days. And I know you said once a Raven, always a Raven, but bring me into your NFL career, because not only did you make it in the NFL, but you had longevity over a long stream of seasons. You talk about a guy spending a decade in the NFL. That is very, very difficult to live in a world like you lived in, coming in there in 1993 and finishing up in 2002. Almost a full-on decade, pretty much what you put in training and everything else. I'm just going to call it a decade. So to do that, bring me into that experience, how you feel you lasted in the NFL, and just, the stops that you had to.
Yeah. So my mind was, I want to do a double-digit, career as far as the NFL is concerned. And I was thankful that I was able to do that. I had C3, C4 neck fusion. So that's where, I had to call it a day after my time in Indianapolis, 1 year there. The middle part of being in the league was where I called it my wilderness experience, because the first 4 years, it's amazing. Once you get past college, next thing you know, time just be poof, gone. You're like, what? I mean, I spent 4 years in Minnesota. It's similar, somewhat, because I had a redshirt year at Syracuse, but 4 years up at the Cuse, it's like, wow, it just seemed like it took forever. And it seemed like in Minnesota, it was like a blink of an eye. I'm like, man, I can't believe that. So, I didn't understand how to work like truly professionally work. And it took me, my time in Miami and my time in New Orleans to figure things out. You go through the fire. Even though you go through the fire, you will not be burned. In other words, the impurities, the refiner's fire to help you season yourself to get ready to play and play well has to come about. So it was humbling. I mean, being active for a game and then not being active for, strings of games. It kind of is like, well, what are we going to do? But you have a choice. You can either sit there and wallow, or you can sit there and work on your craft. I was fortunate enough to meet some people who, were just as skilled in what they did as what I did. Got some corrective contact lenses, worked on my craft with some vision therapy to help myself as far as, that was concerned. And I think it was just the greatest experience. What do I mean by that? Well, I go to Baltimore and I came into some of the greatest success of my athletic career. And obviously in 2000, we were playing against the New York Giants down in Tampa, and 34-7 later, you're a Super Bowl champion. So being a go-to receiver, winning the Super Bowl, playing with all the Hall of Famers that I played with, reuniting with a year with Marvin, and watching him as an amazing pro, and how he developed, just the way in which my career went. There was a lot of challenges to overcome, but it was fun. I mean, I enjoyed it all, and wouldn't trade it for the world.
That coming from Qadry Ismail here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Cubal studios. You call that your wilderness years, the middle area in Miami and New Orleans. Some people would give up. Some people would find no way out. Some people would stay in the black hole and think there's no way for me to, scrape at the side of this thing to get out of this black hole. You took those wilderness years, you cut through the brush, and then you had 2,000+ yard seasons as a receiver in Baltimore. I want to sit on that for a second, because you went through adversity, literally hit that wall, and then responded later in your NFL career by becoming even better. How does that happen?
I think, part of growing up with an older brother who, people talk about, to this day, okay, I'm 51. I don't really need to race. I've already established myself as fast. My brother established himself as world-class speed as well. Who cares? But funny, people will ask, and that's fine. I get it. It's awesome. However, when we were growing up, the mindset of working hard and trying my best, it's interesting because I was a hurdler both in college and in high school and in college, and was a two-sport All-American. When I took up hurdling, it was because I knew I wasn't ever going to beat my brother in a race. And so my mindset was like, I know I got it. I just got to find my lane and excel in my lane, and not get caught up in trying to compare myself to the lane that my brother is in. And I think sometimes when I speak with, young people, I think, they're so quick to give up because, oh, well, I just can't do it. I'm like, all right, well, find your lane, find what you're good at. For me, it was hurdling. And I remember my sophomore year of high school, took third in the state. And from that point forward, I never lost again throughout my high school career, and finished the #1 high school hurdler in the nation by USA Track and Field News. So overall, when you look at it, it's your desire to really want to see things to the end, see how you can help yourself. And when you have that mentality, I think that there's a mental mindset that things start to come to you. I know Dr. Saber, when I was in my wilderness experience, his desire to put me with the exact corrective lens, because my astigmatism was so crazy, a regular contact lens wasn't going to cut it. His ability to give me vision therapy when I knew, like, I can see, but I can't see. And then his ability to really, really hook me up and like, okay, this is what you need to do. I take some of the things that I've learned then and I still apply them to life today.
Yeah.
That's how it is. There's no easy way out. There's no shortcuts. Sure, there's the connections that you get from people along the way, and hopefully you take advantage of some of the wisdom that they impart into you. But the end of the day, man, it's about having that spirit of joy when you're going through the fire.
And before I let you go here, that 2001 season, Super Bowl champions, I want to let you know how I watched that Super Bowl, the Trent Dilfer Kerry Collins Super Bowl. I want to let you know how I lived in that world. That Super Bowl for me, I was downstairs in the house I grew up in, and my dad's still in. My mom, my dad have parted ways. So I'm laying there. I'm sick. I had a fever. I felt awful for like a couple. This was the worst that I had felt the whole time. I had a fever of at least 102 that night. I had been trying to sleep all day. I got blankets on me. I'm sweating all over the place. My mom, we had a sleeper sofa. My mom was laying there next to me and trying to make sure I was okay. Best mom in the world. So my mom's just hanging out right there, making sure I'm all right. She said, I'll watch the game with you. So she's there, and my mom was the type of mom. She's like, I don't care if I get sick, as long as you're okay, honey. Like, I'll bring you your chicken soup, all that stuff. So she's there with me watching this game on the sleeper sofa. And I remember feeling a headache kind of right here, 102-degree temperature, sweating my behind off. And I was like, I'm not gonna look away. I got to watch it. And I watched that entire Super Bowl that you won with 102-degree temperature. And that is one of the Super Bowls I remember easily. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's the only Super Bowl I remember watching in my parents' house that I grew up in.
Wow.
And that one and the Dirty Bird, I do remember that. But seeing that, so I just want you to know that while you're out there balling out, I had 102-degree fever, and I was watching the game like, what did Brandon Stokely just do? Did I just see that? Are there 7 people on the field right now that just caught that ball? So like,
yeah.
but I did get to experience your Super Bowl in a very unique way, and I wanted to let you know that.
Yeah, no, I tell you what, man, I can't tell you how many people have shared their stories of watching our Super Bowl. Obviously, I'm back in Maryland and just north of Baltimore. There are fans here that watch when the DVD copies came out. Fans were sitting down and showing their kids to today. Now they're in their early 20s. They're like, oh my God, coach, I remember. I'm like, bro, you weren't even alive. You're a little kid. You didn't even know. But yet, their parents, they were like, yo, this is it. So yeah, I do. I appreciate your story, and it'll be added on to the other stories that I heard, because there was so much to getting to that game. As you're talking, I'm reflecting back, like, yeah, I remember driving over to the stadium, and I'm like, man, this is everything I've dreamed of. I need to be so ready for it. And just all of it, the entire everything to make it happen was extraordinary, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you said you got to reconnect right after that with Marvin Harrison. What was that like for you? Because I mean, he's considered to be one of the greatest ever in the game of the NFL, and of course at Syracuse. And his
Yes.
connection with Peyton Manning was insane.
His work ethic and ability to dominate in practice made going out on the game field look so effortless. And I just marvel at how, Marvin would just get open. Just really smart student of the game. You just, man, you just saw the way he went about his craft. Dude was quiet as quiet can be, but he just had like this inner swag of confidence that oozed out of him. And really great teammate. Just good dude. Quiet but good dude. Like, I mean, my biggest story where I always tell people, I'm like, yeah, we doing one-on-ones. Marvin was like, yeah, I want a post route. Boom, 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 runs a post. Yells over to Peyton, because Peyton was a workaholic unto himself. He goes, Peyton, he goes, the same thing. He said it out loud, so the corner heard it. Corner couldn't stop him. I think they ran it maybe 4 or 5 other times, and he just kept saying, do it again, do it again, do it again. And every time, like, I'm dead serious, the dude didn't stop him because he wanted to work on that portion of his game. And I never saw that before. I was like, okay, that's Marvin. So for him to finish off his career the way he did, and the Hall of Fame credentials that just defined who he was as a player, I'm proud to call him a teammate, both in college and in pro.
Coming from Qadry Ismail and Qadry, I appreciate this. Like I said, for so many reasons. I feel like we just got started with the conversation. So if you'll oblige me, I got to get you back and definitely have you on because you're in the Maryland area. You're not too far away. Maybe we can figure something out. So also beyond having you back, maybe we can catch up here, grab a little lunch, something, or do something in my travels, because I would be honored to be in your presence. And I'm not going to call you the missile. I know you got missile training. I'm going to call you Qadry. But I'm gonna call you the number 45 that was on the front of my programs at Syracuse that I still have. I'm gonna call you the guy that when I'm playing fantasy football, I got my eye on. I want to draft. I'm gonna call you the guy that every time you kept doing your thing in the NFL, I was like, man, it just makes me proud for my hometown. So I'm thankful that you're a father. I'm thankful that everything that you've done and what you tried to do for kids that are your kids and kids that aren't. And so thank you for your work. Thank you for this time. It is a dream come true. This is a time capsule. This is better than any autograph or jersey that I could have ever gotten. So, I hope this is the first of many. And I would love to be able to, see you sometime soon if you would give me the opportunity to do that, because I am so moved by the man that you are more than anything else. So thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate it. Absolutely. We'll make it happen. We would have probably spent more time. I just know that I'm about to jump on another Zoom call right now. That being said, though, yeah, we'll make it happen. You got my information. We'll connect up, and yeah, it's always good talking to you, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Qadry. So listen, take care of yourself. Give my best, and shout out to the greatest launching pad I think ever created. So give your mom some credit. God made a good launching pad. So
Indeed. Appreciate you, brother, man. Thank you so much.
Take care.